Well, happy anniversary to us. It's time for episode 250 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by Memorial Healthcare and Skymint Cannabis. Memorial Healthcare's now Community Wellness Center has been a tremendous addition to the community. Included in your Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center membership is the use of the cardio exercise area, the Sky Track, where you can walk, jog, or run around the track. Also, you can drop in on many of the fitness classes. Check out the therapy pool for aquatic exercising, stretching, and swimming. Just a great facility. Learn more by going online at memorialhealthcare.org. Commitment, compassion for life, Memorial Healthcare. Skymint Cannabis, they're Michigan's leader in the industry, over 15 locations throughout the state. Check out the new Skymint Reserve, an elevated cannabis line featuring exceptional profiles for a more dynamic feeling, sophisticated, selectively sourced, locally grown. Skymint Cannabis. If you're over 21, go online at skymint.com. Sign up for the rewards program. They're one-stop shop for pain relief and more. Use that coupon code at the Corona store, 3.20, for 20% off their products. Our other great local partners include AZEE Printing Solutions, Crow Real Estate and Auction, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Capital Sports Fieldhouse, Nelson House Funeral Homes, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Well, fellas, we got a big show lined up tonight for our anniversary. Lions play-by-play man Dan Miller will be checking in. We also have our prep spotlight on Laingsburg, their 10-0 start, and we'll have their head coach Daniel Morrill stopping by. And we have the return of our oldest athletic supporter a little later on. So it should be a good show. And well, what do you think, guys? We've made it to 250. Hard to believe.
Is that like a milestone? You know, in marriages, there's like the golden anniversary, the silver. Is 250 anything?
I don't know. It's crazy to think. I don't know where else we would go. I mean, I think 500, I guess, would be the next milestone, which is insane to even think about. I mean, we're crazy to even do 250 of these.
Right.
Whenever people take a look at our feed, a new listener or whatever, and they happen to find out about our podcast, they're always like, their eyes like jump out of their head when they see how many podcasts we've done. they would I remember I had a coworker who found out about it. And he's like, how long have you guys been doing this? Like 10 years? I was like, no, just a few years. So
it is kind of crazy. I mean, there's a couple that I listen to that kind of, they number each of their podcasts, you know, kind of like we do. And they're up to like 875. And, you know, another one is in the 600s or something. And I remember when we started this thing, so obviously those numbers were lower for those podcasts, 400s or whatever.
Yeah.
When we started, I was thinking, that seems like so many episodes, 400, you know, or whatever. But really, that's around the corner for us, and we're still plugging away. Honestly, though, I know we always say it. We've said this before. We have fun with it, but we have a lot of cool guests. We've had a ton of cool guests. We've got another super cool one tonight. So it keeps it fun. We like the local sports too. Keep us going.
Yeah, it really does, you know, and I think the reason we're celebrating 250, because I think we forgot to celebrate 200. So yeah, it's just another natural milestone, but it is amazing. You know, we pretty much have been as regular as you can be, one a week. I mean, we've taken a week off for holidays here and there, but not very often. It's been a pretty consistent 250. And, you know, everything else that we have on the program, and with some of the high school games that are reposted on there for, you know, a lot of the athletes and their parents get a chance to listen to them. I mean, I think we got a pretty good site here with our podcast and the other things we do. And man, you know, I can't say enough about our sponsors, guys. I mean, we've been here 250. We've got our core 5 or 6 that have been there the entire way. And it's just a tribute to them. I mean, they like what we put out there, and we really like what they provide.
Yeah, I mean, we really do have the best sponsors. I mean, Rivals, great place to get something to eat. I mean, the Wellness Center. I mean, we were all wowed with that. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, it's incredible. I still remember when we got our very first sponsor. I was at Grand Valley. I was walking to class, and I was, you know, you sound silly saying it, but I was pretty taken aback by it. I never thought that would ever happen, to be honest, with this podcast. You know, but we really do have the best sponsors. A lot of them have been with us, Rivals, since the very beginning. So it's just cool to get all the way to 250 and see how far we've kind of come.
Well, I mean, they're loyal. They're loyal to us. We're loyal to them. But, you know, we can't say it enough to our listeners. We've got a lot of listeners nowadays. And anytime that you're in one of the businesses you hear here, just a little mention that, hey, I hear your spots on 3 Point Podcast. That goes a long way. That helps them know that their advertising is going to good use, and it helps us. You know, it's a win-win.
Love it. Always love that local support. Goes a long way.
All right. Well, speaking of that support, we'll have a couple messages coming up next, and then we'll go right to Dan Miller of the Detroit Lions Radio Broadcast Network.
Hi, it's Scott Johnson from TV5 saying congratulations to the 3 Point Podcast for making it to episode number 250. I have no idea how that happened, but here's to the next 250. Great job, fellas. Always enjoy the show.
Hey guys, Jim Woodworth here, and I just want to give you a quick congrats on show number 250. It's kind of a big deal, and I appreciate all you do to showcase our local athletes and all the banter. The best thing we've learned, though, is Jared is one bad mother. Not afraid to pass a cop. Love you guys.
Lions shift on that defensive front. Long count by Rodgers. Will he snap it? There he goes. They go on the end around to Lazard. Yes. They didn't get it. Yes. Blown up by Alex Anzalone. They tried to come in the end around with a jet sweep look that time to Lazard. Anzalone said, not on my watch. Two deep safeties here. It is 3rd and 5 Green Bay from the Lion 24. There's the shotgun snap to Rodgers. He's back, pumps, hit, going down. Sack back at the 30-yard line. Aiden Hutchinson got him again. So here we go. The Lions can end this ball game right here. 4th and 1 from the Green Bay 15. These Packers fighting to get into the playoffs. The Lions fighting to get this ball game right here. They're going to go empty. Goff takes the snap, back, looks, throws, caught. First down, Detroit Lions. DJ Chark down inside the 10-yard line. This game is over. Yes. It is over. Execute a couple of snaps, and these Lions are going home with a victory.
Well, there's the voice. It's episode 250, and we wanted a special guest, and we got him. Detroit's Fox 2 sports director and anchor, and outstanding Detroit Lions radio network play-by-play guy, Dan Miller. First of all, Dan, thanks for the time. And I want to just start it off with a question, kind of a little, not really rambling, but, we watched this Lions team, Hard Knocks. We're all fired up. They get off to a 1-6 start. We're thinking, what's going on? And then they finish 8-2 and have the big W at Lambeau to end the season with a winning record. I mean, walk us a little bit through your emotions this season, because I know you get into your broadcast and it had to be a roller coaster.
Yeah, it was. Number one, thank you for having me, and congratulations on 250. That's a great run and still going. Look, I think, I've told people this before. When Hard Knocks happened and people all around the country were jumping on the Lions bandwagon and saying, oh my gosh, this team's going to do X, Y, and Z. I feel like there was a group of us in the media in Detroit that were kind of saying to people, hey, pump the brakes a little bit. This team won 3 games last year. Now, I didn't see 1-6 coming. I certainly thought that start would be better than that. It was a weird 1-6 because they had winnable games outside of the New England game that kind of got away from them. And it was literally one play to a half of a play that could have swung some of those games. So 1-6, it was tough, man. 1-6 is 1-6, regardless of how you want to parse it and say they could have won some of those games. You're 1-6. So it was pretty brutal. And then they just started cleaning some things up. It wasn't this massive schematic shift or lineup shift or anything like that. They stopped turning the ball over. They started taking the ball away. They were winning the turnover battle on a regular basis. They stopped for the most part. There was some times where they didn't, committing the penalties that were giving other teams extended drives, first downs, things like that. And really, those are the things that helped turn them around. It was ball security and just playing smarter. And all of a sudden, you looked up, and that margin that they weren't able to handle in the first 7 games, they started to have that going their way, and they started to win. And then they gained confidence, got on a run, and it was a really nice way to end the season. Disappointing way to start, because that's ultimately what cost them, was that 1-6 start.
Yeah, especially seeing a couple of the teams that have played in and moved on in the playoffs, the Lions beat.
You know what? Credit to them. They got there. And I know what you're saying, and it does make you just kind of go, you felt like they could have done some damage if they could have gotten in there. The way they were playing at the end, if they'd have gotten into the playoffs, you get the feeling they could have hung around for a while. They could have played with these teams. I don't think there's one team in the NFC that I look at right now that I would have said going in there, oh, they're in big trouble. That doesn't mean they were going to win,
Yeah.
but it just meant you felt like they could go in there and represent themselves and have a chance to win. But again, that's just us sitting here talking now. You got to handle your business. And ultimately, that's, I think, Dan Campbell's message to this team is, don't put yourself in a position where you need help from somebody else. Don't put yourself in a position where you've got to dig out of a massive hole, because both those things were true about this team this year.
Yeah, Dan, I want to, you brought up Dan Campbell, and we're recording on Monday night, and Coach Campbell is going to be with the Mannings on Monday Night Football. So I'll be curious to see that interview with Coach Campbell. But I wanted to ask you about him. We've all seen the previous regimes, and it's not taking any knocks at these previous coaches, Morningweg, Schwartz, Marinelli, Patricia, some of these other guys. Are you all in on, because, so it's been a little back and forth. There's been some growing pains with Dan Campbell, obviously turned it around at the end of last season, turned it around at the end of this season, coupled with how Brad Holmes drafts. They have a bunch of great draft picks next year. Are you all in on Dan Campbell? And is it basically win the NFC North or bust next year? Or is it still kind of a little growing to do?
I think it's the organization. I don't think it's just Dan Campbell. I think you're looking at this as a package. I think it's Brad Holmes. I think it's Dan Campbell. I think it's his staff. I think it's everything that's there. Look, I think starting with Campbell, he checks a lot of boxes. He's consistent. He knows who he is. The players love him. He hasn't changed one bit since the day he got there. Some coaches, when things aren't going well, you see him kind of say, "Oh, I'm going to try this," or "I'm going to be more stern," or "I'm going to try this way of acting towards." He doesn't change, regardless of what's going on. Never gets, flustered at the podium, never takes shots at anybody, never has a problem with a question, and deals with his players with the same respect that he deals with everybody else. And I think that they see that. They can smell a phony. They can smell somebody they don't want to play with. And this guy is somebody that doesn't, move the needle in that regard in any kind of negative way. I think the most important thing you can say about Dan Campbell, outside of the fact that players want to play for him and do play for him, is that he has assembled a staff that has developed players, because that's been missing around here for a long time. If you don't develop the players that you draft and get a pipeline going, you will never be a successful franchise. You just can't do it. It's what the two teams I hold up, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, continuous success over an extended period of time, because they know the players they want, they draft them, they develop them, and they continuously replace guys that leave, retire, free agency, deal because of salaries, things like that. And I think you can look up and down this roster and see players that the Lions have brought in. This 8-2 was fueled in many ways by guys that were in their first and second years, guys that are playing good football for this team. And that's what gives me hope. That's what makes me believe. Yeah, I believe in the guys. I think Brad Holmes has earned that. I think Dan Campbell has earned that. But it's the results that allows you to say, here's tangibly why I believe these guys are doing it the right way. And I think that's what I think separates this group from groups that we've seen in the past, is that they're doing what you have to do. They've been conservative. They haven't gone out and spent huge money on free agents. They haven't felt the need to swing massive trades or anything like that. They have built through the draft and young players, which is where you have to be. Now, I think into this offseason, they can be much more pointed in terms of their direction and what they want to do, because they know their roster, they know their holes. To your point, yes, I believe the bottom line is you do have to compete in that NFC North next year. Do you win it? We'll see. Let's see where we are in December. But I think as a baseline, for the first time in a long time, you're looking at it and saying nothing less would be acceptable with this team. Not understanding injuries or anything like that. But as we stand right now, going into an offseason and coming off of this season, and understanding there will be significant changes to this roster, even as well as they've finished, I just think that's where they are as a franchise right now. It's time to put expectations on them.
One of the big parts of this past season has been, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. We love watching him every Sunday. He dials up plays, one of the best in the league, obviously leading candidate for a lot of head coaching jobs. I feel like we as Lions fans still don't really know much about him, though. I know you've been able to kind of have a front row seat to a lot of his games that he's called, the last 2 years. What is there that you can tell us about this guy, and how important was he to this team this past year?
Very important. I think you'd call it a meteoric rise, even though he's been in this league for a while. From somebody who wasn't calling plays to 1 year of calling plays to getting interviews for head coaching jobs is really a testament to the job that he did. And look, they had a lot of weapons. This offensive line is what this team was built around. And they've put a lot of assets into getting this offense going in the right direction, but he got it going in the right direction. Right. And he made it all work. So look, nothing but respect for Ben Johnson. My gut is he's probably going to get one of these jobs and won't be back. We'll see what happens. Things can fall in a strange way and dominoes can kind of go against you. So I can't guarantee he won't be back, but it certainly feels like he's going to get one of these gigs. And you know what? That's price of being successful. That's the price that you pay. And that means people are taking note of what you're doing and you're doing something right. And look, Dan Campbell, it's then incumbent upon him to go out and find somebody, whether it's on the staff now or he goes outside the organization. But I think, in 2 years, looking at this staff that I mentioned a moment ago, the job they've done, I think you give them the benefit of the doubt. Doesn't mean it's optimal or what you want to do, but there's nothing you can do about it. And I guarantee you Dan Campbell's getting a short list of guys together right now. And I guarantee you he's got one, a short list of guys together right now that he is going to look to replace him. Like I said, whether it's in-house or outside the organization.
Well, when you talk about offense, and obviously the face of the team is your quarterback, some of your thoughts on Jared Goff and what he did this year and maybe what the future holds.
I think Jared Goff had to answer the question this year whether or not he was this team's quarterback. I don't think you could get to the end of this season with any question about whether or not he was the guy. And I think 6-7 games in, with the problems that he had, protecting the football, there were still questions about that. They were scoring, number one scoring team in the league for a month, and ended up top 5 in scoring. I think he answered those questions with the way that he played over the final 10, 11 games of the season, the way he protected the football, the way he scored points, the way he moved this offense, the way guys rally behind him and want to play with him and for him, which is important for a quarterback. Look, he's this team's quarterback. And I think they'll bring in, my guess is a quarterback somewhere along the line as a developmental guy, but I don't think it'll be a first-round quarterback. We'll see. I don't think it'll be a first-round quarterback unless it's somebody they absolutely love that's sitting there on the board and you can't pass him up. Jared Goff is this team's quarterback. Yep. I do think you need to start developing something behind them. I think it's been blind spot maybe for this organization that they haven't had somebody back there that was ready in case Goff went down. I don't necessarily think there's anybody we've seen in the past several years that you would look at and say, okay, if the starting quarterback gets hurt, you're still going to be able to win games. Now, maybe that's more teams than not in this league. It's a long way of saying Goff's the quarterback. He will be the quarterback next year. But I would be surprised if there's not a youngish quarterback added to this roster behind him.
I mean, that was kind of the problem. We don't want to necessarily call it a problem, but through all the Stafford years, they never seemed to address the backup quarterback significantly anyway, through all the Stafford years, maybe like signing Chase Daniel, but they never drafted like a developmental guy to be maybe if Stafford went down. So maybe that's something they need to address, especially looking at the playoffs right now and all the teams still playing in the playoffs with backup quarterbacks, or they made the playoffs with backup quarterbacks. The 49ers have a third string Mr. Irrelevant. They might win the NFC, so.
Yeah, I think they've drafted a couple, but I think they will put more emphasis on it, if you will. It will be more of a sense of urgency and this it's just a guess. I just think at some point, and it's not to say he's going to replace Jared Goff, but you've got to have somebody that's getting ready to be that guy. And I think at some point with all these draft picks they have, and maybe it's a free agent from another team that they like as a young developmental guy. I truly believe next year there will be somebody in there somewhere behind Jared that they're bringing along that'll give them some sense of stability in the future if something were to happen to Jared. But none of this is to say that he's not the guy. He is the guy. And I think he defined himself as that this season.
One thing I found interesting when I was looking up your kind of backstory is that you grew up in the DC area and your dad was a season ticket holder for the Washington Commanders for a long time. How did you end up making your way to Detroit? And when you got here, were you a little bit depressed to have to become, somewhat of a pseudo Lions fan?
No, you know what? In my business, you kind of go where the job is. And my wife and I had, looked at, I was working in DC, I was doing talk radio and I was doing television in DC and wanted to get into television full time. And we had looked at a couple of jobs in a couple different places and had an opportunity in a couple different places, didn't get the opportunity we wanted in a couple places. Yeah. And we just kind of, I've told people it felt like we ran an obstacle course to get where we were by, not getting jobs, getting offered jobs, not taking jobs, things like that. And then one day my agent called me and said, there's a news director in Detroit that likes your tape. And we hadn't applied. He had gone to, they used to have these warehouses where people would go and they'd say, I need a weather guy or I need a sports guy or something like that. And literally they could sit there and watch tape after tape after tape after tape. And mine popped out to him. And I got that call from my agent. And I have said this before, I walked downstairs to my wife and I remember she was in the kitchen and I said, there's a news director in Detroit that likes our tape. And she goes, okay. And I said to her, this is it, right? And she said, I know. And it was just something that told me at that moment that this was going to be the one. And we'd had, such a weird kind of road to get there. And for some reason, something just told me that this was going to be it. And, as far as the Lions thing, I think it was organic. I think you come here. I did shows for the Lions starting, I think, my second year here. I was hosting their weekly show. Mm-hmm. And it just, I think you become, and I was doing our pregame show and our postgame show back in the day with the guys, doing it weekly. And I think you just become immersed in it. You get to know people, you get to know coaches, you get to know players. And after a while, you're rooting for them. You know them, you want them to succeed. You see the fans. And this is before I became the play-by-play guy or anything like that. Right. You want to see them succeed. You're feeling the vibe of the city. You work here. So I think it was kind of organic that it just became this, that you started rooting for the team to do well. And like I said, that was before I even got the play-by-play job. So it's hard to be in a city long-term and so deep into covering a team on a daily basis, whether it's the Pistons or Wings or something like that, and not find yourself rooting for them and rooting for the story.
I know I've relocated. I moved out to Connecticut where I started my career at ESPN, and I didn't jump on any of the Boston or New York or Washington bandwagons. I'm now down in North Carolina. I am not going to be a Panthers fan. I can tell you that. My daughter, actually, funny story. She came home. She's in first grade. She said, Daddy, why am I always wearing Lions stuff? All my friends at school are wearing Panthers shirts. And I was like, you won't see any Panthers shirts in this household. But anyway, I was going to ask you about moving to Detroit and in the local news game and how it's just changed. You've been doing it for a long time. I started at Fox 17 in Grand Rapids. Jared did also at Fox 17 in Grand Rapids. I knew some people that actually relocated to Detroit at WXYZ down there. So I've stayed engaged, I guess, paying attention to local news. I enjoyed my time doing local news. Things have changed a lot, though, as you would definitely know. One of my favorite things after Lions games is just being honest, is when they post the videos, whether on YouTube or Twitter, of your calls matched up to the plays. You're very good at what you do. And obviously I'm a diehard Lions fan, so I love it. That kind of thing, social media, just how local news has changed, sports, all that kind of stuff. What have you seen that's been like the most significant change over either covering sports or just in general in local news, sports, all that kind of stuff in your career?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the kind words. I think it's just that it has gone from something you did at 5, 6, 10, and 11 to it's all day. I mean, it's immediate because we now have Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, all these different things. It's just, there's a constant flow. It's never not on. It's not like you wait to break something until, or comment on something or put something out on something until 6 or 5 or wait till 10. And I will tell you that's somewhat new even in the last 15, 18 years, because, I remember when Mariucci got fired and I had that story and Mike O'Hara from the Detroit News had that story and I knew he had it. And even then the Detroit News wasn't putting out Mike's story until I think 10 or 11 o'clock at night, because that's when they put out the early morning edition for the next day. So it wasn't even immediate back then. So I'm kind of trying to get my nuts and bolts of this story together for our 10 o'clock news. And I know I have some time to work it. I know he's working it. I'm working it. But it was, I remember that. And I bring that up just because it shows you if that happened now, you would have to put that out much, much quicker. You wouldn't have, 6 or 7 hours after the game gathering information and the ability to do that. Now you still got to be right.
Right.
But it's just the way things have evolved since then. That's the biggest change, I think, is look, there's so many more channels than they were when I got into this business. There's so many more places where people can get their news. But when all is said and done, it's the immediacy of it. Yeah. And just the delivery has changed so much. And the expectation of the viewer, listener, reader has changed so much.
I got 2 quick ones for you, Dan. We don't want to keep you all night, but my last couple of questions, it's kind of a follow-up to Jared's. You grew up a Redskins fan. He called it, the Commanders, but they were the Redskins back in your day. I had a team, or 2 teams, the Tigers of 68 and 84. It's tough for me to decide. What about you? Is it the George Allen Skins or the Joe Gibbs?
Oh, all of them have a place in my heart. I mean, I grew up a massive Bullets fan too, and them winning the championship in 78 was huge for me in my childhood. And I was at Game 6 against Seattle at the Capitol Center when they blew them out to get to Game 7 in Seattle, which was enduring memory. Look, George Allen brought winning football to Washington, and that's when I was introduced to the game. So certainly that's Sonny Jurgensen, Billy Kilmer, Larry Brown, Charlie Taylor, Chris Hanberger, all those guys, Ken Houston, Pat Fisher. Those Good are team. All guys that helped introduce me to the game. I mean, the Joe Gibbs teams, though, that introduced me to what championships were in football and going to a parade and seeing that team win and all the things that they did. And, Frank Herzog, the voice of the team, is the guy that rings in my ear when I see Riggins go around the left side, and I can hear his call still, even though I watch the game on television. And a lot of my touchdown call is from Frank. I mean, he's the guy that was a mentor to me and was somebody that I looked at and just wanted to be like him. He did TV, he did play-by-play. I wanted to do what he did, and I've been blessed enough to be able to do that. So, I mean, there's something that I take from all of those experiences and all of those teams growing up that shape who I am today. But I think when you see a team that you root for win 3 Super Bowls and you see a team that you root for go to 4 Super Bowls, it's a pretty amazing run. And, then to be able to cover that team when I got into the business was pretty special as well. So, it was an amazing time. And you win it every season thinking you had a chance to win a Super Bowl. That's the kind of run that they had there.
The follow-up question I have is a play-by-play guy. And you're obviously one of the best throughout the entire NFL. There's no question about it. But I have noticed on some of the Twitter feeds, first of all, you're very animated, which I can appreciate. You're into the game. But your helpers there, your spotters, handing you notes, you make it sound seamless. They must do a great job getting you that information that you can pass on.
They're unbelievable. I mean, Joe Abramson, my spotter, has been with me since I was doing games for Fox. So he's been with me for 23 years. Mike Bratta, my statistician, came along when I started doing the Lions. So he's been with me for 18. Our engineer, Al Rosenberg, is the best in the country. I mean, every major event, Al is the engineer for that. So I'm surrounded by amazing people, and I come to lean on them so hard. I mean, I call them my right and left arms, and then Al's just behind me making sure everything goes on the air. But they're the best at what they do. You see Joe every night sitting next to George Blaha. He's been with George for over 30 years. So, I mean, these are the best of the best, and I'm lucky enough to have them in the booth with me. And if there's one thing that I really am happy about with those videos, it is that people have gotten to see the amount of support that I get from people in that booth, that it's not just me, and that it is an operation. It is right arm, left arm, and it's a group effort. And that's been really cool that they've gotten some recognition. I mean, Mike has now become known as Sticky Note Guy, and, it's taken on a life of its own, which I think is really cool. And, so I those videos have been. It's fun when you win. People enjoy stuff when you win, and that's certainly part of that, and I understand that. But the coolest thing for me has been that people can see what I know is that a big part of everything I do is the people around me.
This is a tough question, but I got to put you on the hot seat a little bit. What's your favorite call from over the years? I know my favorite one was your Golden Tate walk-off touchdown versus Minnesota. That's mine. What was yours if you had to pick one?
Yeah, it's that one. It's definitely the Golden Tate one. That's the one that I hear about from people more often than not. If people bring up a call, it is that one. And I've, that one also is special to me because my son was at Michigan State at the time, and he was in his frat house, and he had been out doing something, and he came back home, and he back to the house, and they're like, "Oh my God, did you hear your dad? Did you hear your dad?" And Tony's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so they were all talking about it and talking about that call, and he called me up, and he was proud to have me as his dad, which is, kind of unusual because usually it was just dad doing his job. And, I've been doing that job since they were this tall. So that will always be special to me because it meant something to him to walk back into that house and have guys say something about that to him. So that one will always stick out in my mind, because it was so sudden and so unbelievable and incredible to win at Minnesota and to win in that fashion, and that something semi-legible came out of my mouth and people remember it. So yeah, I think that one. I mean, the interception, pick six against San Diego to lock up the playoffs in 2011 and get them back in that kind of relevant position was big as well. But that I think just because so many people bring it up and because of what that one meant to me, it's the Golden Tate call.
Yeah, it was a great call. Well, Dan, I know you got things to do. You got work to do. We just got to have fun here. But I assume you're on the Harbaugh story tonight. Is that one of the things you're working on?
I mean, I guess the story's over. So, I mean, it looks like he's going to be back in Michigan. He'll get a new deal here. I think the thing to watch when he gets a new deal is, what's that buyout look like? Because, the school's probably going to want to protect themselves a little bit from, having to go through this on a yearly basis. But yeah, I mean, it's look, he's due a raise. He gave some money back when things weren't going well. Things have gone great. He'll get his money. He'll be back at Michigan, and I think we can all just kind of move forward now. I think it's the 2 years that he's put together there, beating Ohio State, getting to the playoffs, been terrific, and we'll see where it goes from here. But I think we're all kind of glad that you can kind of just set this one aside now and say he's coming back, and let's get about the business of seeing what the offseason looks like. It's already been good in terms of the transfer portal, and see how these two teams shape up going into the next year.
Yep.
Dan Miller, we appreciate the time so much. I know you have the news tonight, the sports, but tell our listeners best spot to follow you on socials.
I am on Twitter at Dan Miller Fox 2. That's about it. I willfully stayed away from Instagram. I think I have an account that I never did anything with, and Facebook or anything like that. So you can find me on Twitter. And our, Fox 2 Sports is on Twitter as well. So
great.
That's where you find what we're doing here. And we appreciate the follows and people that check out what we do.
Appreciate it, Dan. Thanks for the time, man. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Nice chatting with you.
Thank you.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Brandon Green with ABC 12. 250 episodes. Just amazing. Keep up the great work and get with me when you guys get to 500 because I know you'll do it. All right.
250. I'll take 250, and who will? I'm at 200, now 225, 250, now 260. I'm back to 250. Hey, guys, congratulations to Ted, Matt, and Jared for their 250th podcast episode that's taking place this evening. What a great accomplishments you guys have done, and we appreciate being on your team. Just go to crauctions.com and check us out. Once again, congratulations, guys. Happy 250.
Hey, boys, that was just an awesome discussion with Dan. You can tell he's the pro, and man, he's got to be ecstatic on the future of the Lions. You can tell.
Yeah, I think he's talked about it on broadcast before. He's seen, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, he has seen some dark days with the Lions, as we have. Obviously, you have seen many dark days with the Lions,
yeah,
Ted.
right.
So yeah, like he was saying, it's fun to win, and that's why that his energy comes out. I mean, it's not being like Homer. He's one of the best in the business, doing play-by-play. I love listening when I have a chance, if we're in the car or something, when the Lions are on, if I can turn him on, I'm fine with it. I'm like, cool, I get to listen to Dan call the Lions. So that was a really cool conversation.
It is funny how you say that, Matt. He's probably the only radio announcer that I probably feel that way about, just a legend, a true legend, Detroit legend, obviously came from the DC area, but I mean, it's just awesome to get to talk to him, and the excitement in his voice is palpable heading into next year. And I just can't wait.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool too, because he's kind of a mentor from our former guest, Zach Linfield, the Michigan broadcaster, the young kid, and they have kind of similar deliveries. So I think Zach's smart to take off a little bit of Dan Miller for sure. It's time now for the Prep Spotlight presented by Capital Sports Fieldhouse. We're going to be talking Laingsburg basketball, and they're coming off a big win. The Woodruff brothers combined for 59 in the Wolfpack's 91-44 win over Dansville. Eli led the way with 35, and Xander put up 24. And the man that runs the show, their head coach, Daniel Morrill, now in his 4th season as the Laingsburg head coach. Capital Sports Fieldhouse is the home of hit and pitch and a whole lot more. The 10,000 square foot turf field can be used for all indoor sports training, including football, baseball, basketball, softball, soccer, and many other activities. Hit and Pitch has 7 indoor batting cages with full pitching tunnel and the state-of-the-art Hit Tracks training system utilized by MLB organizations. Located in the old Capitol Bowl J.C. Penney block on South Washington in Owosso, Michigan. For more details, call Capital Sports and Hit and Pitch at 989-472-4624 or online at capitalsportsfh.com. All right, we got the head coach of the Laingsburg Wolfpack on the line with us. Again, as I said, Daniel Morrill. And boy, you're off to a great start, Coach. 10-0, and you won the Shiawassee Shootout. Tell us about this year's edition of Wolfpack basketball.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good things going on. We're having a blast. We've got just a ton of talent, but really hardworking kids. I mean, the talent's been developed, and I think every school nowadays says, these kids have been playing together since they were young kids. Like that's normal. That's typical. But these kids love to play together. Like they love. I can't keep them out of the gym. If they've got a weekend off, they're finding a gym and they're playing together. So, and actually, it's been probably one of the challenges. We've had a couple of kids with nagging injuries that I can't get them healed up because they keep pounding away. Like Eli, one of the Woodruff brothers that you spoke of, has a broken foot from football, and he just won't stay off it. But
yeah, it's kind of that's kind of a long injury to rehab. So it's almost like shut it down for the season or just play through it. But
yeah, so he's been playing through it, and he's kind of finally coming along. It just took a while. It was at first they thought it was turf toe. He missed his final football game his senior year with it. And then as time went on, it just wasn't healing up. And finally, they got an MRI and got some specialists involved. And they said, no, you've got a break and torn ligaments and bone bruising and all sorts of a mess. And frankly, we were worried he'd miss his senior year of basketball. So we've got a tremendous trainer who's been doing toe yoga and stuff with him.
Nice.
It's really worked. He's gotten better and better and better over time, and he has to tape it a certain way. And I've limited his minutes all year, but as you heard the other night, we kind of let him loose a little bit.
Yeah. And obviously you guys are having a great year, him included. And I wanted to ask about, Ted mentioned the Shiawassee Shootout, the thing that you guys won over our alma mater, Corunna. My playing days, I played in like the early 2000s. And there wasn't anything like that back when I was playing. And we've talked about it, whether it be with football, basketball, any of the high school sports in our area, just how cool it is to have stuff like that, where you play some neighboring cities, whether it's Corunna and Owosso or, Perry, Laingsburg, all that kind of stuff. And, because you all see each other. You live, you go to the same stores, you see each other when you're out in the town or, whatever you want to say. And I just think that's really cool. I wish we would have had something like that, I guess is what I'm saying, the Shiawassee Shootout. When I was playing, do you feel the same way? Do you think something like that is really cool for the kids, or is it just another couple games to play?
Yeah, look, almost necessary, to be honest with you, because we hadn't done it previously. I think the MHSAA made a good decision by saying, let's shrink everything a week and let's add 2 games.
Yep.
There was just so much dead time in the season. And not that teenage boys aren't the most attentive group of individuals, but you can only go through so many weeks of not having a game anywhere near, in sight before they lose interest a little bit, and you've got to get super creative. So for us, we were searching for a few games like everybody was, but a few extra because we lost a league school. And I really wanted to get into a holiday tournament. I think they become increasingly popular before the addition of the 2 games, and just to have one local against good competition was, it was an easy decision.
Yeah.
So we had a blast.
Yeah.
Laingsburg has always been, in my opinion, a great measuring stick of a good program. I mean, you guys have always been steady going back, the Greg Mitchell days. I know you played under him. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Why is that there seems to never be any drop off from year to year, from coach to coach? Seems like Laingsburg is always, right around 15 wins, maybe better. Why is that?
Yeah, well, you mentioned it, Greg Mitchell. So I was young in high school when he hit the scene, and these are the days where our weight room was a closet. And you kind of had to pull the bench out into the lobby of the, and that's how you worked out. Or that's how you thought you were working out. And and he changed the culture. And so this was back 1989, and it took a while, of course, but it was the building of a youth program. It was the building of a community's belief in the youth program. And now you guys know the old saying, probably Jim Harbaugh, I think, that said it the other day or like a couple months ago about Ryan Day, like the born on third thinks he hit a triple.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I didn't hit a triple, but I was born on third with this program, and I know that. So it's a plug and play system, and essentially, I don't want to downplay my role in it, but to be very honest and humble, I think there's a lot of really good coaches around, and anybody that stepped into this role that just was willing to put in the work and pay things forward would have success.
Well, you talked about Greg Mitchell, and you're right. I mean, the guy, he's just a fantastic coach. He proved it at Laingsburg and now at Hope. But he set the stage and he built the program, but coaches like yourself have kept it going on. And, we've talked about it here on the podcast before, how important it is if a team's like starting at the bottom, and we got a couple teams in our area are at the bottom, right? You got to get the right guy in there that is going to put the time and effort in, knows what they're doing, first of all, but you got to be down there with the, 5th and 6th graders kind of directing how you want your coaches at that level to put a program together. And obviously, I'm sure you put the same kind of time in. Isn't that one of the real keys in having success?
It's up there for sure. I mean, you're not going to do anything special without effort, right? But I think in addition to that, having a rapport with the kids, more like that's foundational. So you're not working your way up the pyramid unless your foundation is solid. And for me, being a teacher there helps a ton. I teach a couple of things that the kids tend to enjoy, like a sports history class, a history via media, a psychology class. And I think it just allows me an opportunity to spend time with them. I spent a few years in between my coaching stints. I coached girls basketball in the mid-early 2000s, and when I stepped away from that just before my 4th child was born, I then kind of married psychology and sports together, and I got some sports psychology certification. And I think it was just like I've always prioritize being a student of sports and the game, and I think what I learned as much as anything was just that you like anything else, like any relationship, it doesn't go anywhere unless you have a really good rapport and trust, and so I work at that, and that's what connects us to it, and that's what makes it fun. I've got a coaching staff with me that any one of them individually would be one of the best coaches in the area. So I'm doing everything I can to surround these young men with better minds and more engaged people and more interesting people. And it seems to be working this year.
Yeah, I would say so. 10-0 start. That's not too bad. One of my sisters is a teacher at elementary school in Laingsburg. And so my niece and nephews, her kids, they'll be coming up through the ranks here in a few years, maybe playing a little basketball for you. But I wanted to ask, you brought up the community, and I've heard through her and, discussions with my family how much they love Laingsburg. They moved there a few years ago, so they're fairly new to the area, but they've already noticed how great that community is. How big is that support for the success of your program?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I feel like I don't want the secret to get out, because we've got a really unique thing going on here. We're still a reasonably small school, hanging out in that Division III area. We've always been somewhat of a bedroom community to Lansing, and haven't had too many school of choice kids. So most of our kids are kind of on some level homegrown, I guess. And I was too. I grew up in Laingsburg, and I think that's one of my favorite things about it is it's changed, but it hasn't changed too much. It's stayed the same. And my goodness, the parents, the fans, the support it's unique in a day and age where I think most coaches are driven out of it because of the pressure of the community or the parents and the fans. It's one of my favorite things. I'm drawn to it. Don't get me wrong, it's not without its problems. But I think by and large, I'd put our parents and our community up against anybody's and say it's if there was a measuring stick for it, I like us. I mean, it's a tremendous place to be.
So you guys are, 10-0, and in my opinion, I think once you get to the halfway point of the season and you're still unbeaten, I feel like the thoughts kind of start to creep in about what a 20-0 regular season would maybe mean to you guys. I mean, maybe psychologically, how do you keep your team, kind of each game at a time? And is that something you guys have talked about? Is that a goal of your guys, is to try to go this entire regular season unbeaten?
No, we don't have any goals about winning anything in particular. It's pretty important to me to just keep the kids grounded. I think maybe just the opposite is true. I work quite a bit at helping them not focus on that sort of thing. They understand we're not in control of wins any more than anything. I mean, if we're up against LeBron James' kid and his team, we may play our best basketball and lose. And and certainly we might have played poor basketball and won this year at times too. And I think our measuring, the way that we measure ourselves is by ourselves. And we really try to work hard to focus on what we're doing, product that we're putting out. Are we getting the best of us? And frankly, we haven't talked about our record once. We have talked about, I'll plant seeds with them every day, very intentionally, about my goals for them are bigger than, just winning this next game or just this next league or whatever. And without, seeming too arrogant, I want them to understand that they have that capability. But we don't really talk about 22-0 or league championships or those types of things too much. They do know that I've got a pair of scissors in my backpack, and they don't get to look at those until they've earned that. So
that's cool. I'll tell you what, this is our first time to chat, Daniel, but I can see the psychology wheels turning in that brain of yours. I'll tell you, and that definitely goes a long way in coaching and coaching success. Speaking of that, we'll wrap up with this. I think we'll probably catch up with you down the road, talk more specific basketball stuff. But, you're a teacher over at Laingsburg, like you mentioned. You also have a couple of interesting side businesses, don't you?
Well, I did. I'm kind of moving away from that as I get a little bit older. I'm 21. I used to own a strip mall, but I sold that. And this consult mental training business I used to do, but I don't really do too much with that anymore. Laingsburg actually hired me when I was in between my varsity coaching stints. I was just doing some youth coaching for my own children.
Right.
And they hired me to work with all the varsity teams. I did that for about 3 or 4 years. And I love that too. That was really cool.
Well, it seems all to be paying off. I mean, 10-0, go for the next game, one at a time, as we always say in the coaching industry. But hey, we really appreciate the time here on 3 Point Podcast and the Prep Spotlight. We'll be definitely following the Wolfpack very closely the rest of the season.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate it, guys. I had a blast. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Daniel. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. See you.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys, that was a very interesting conversation with Coach Morrill. First time I've actually had a chance to chit chat with him. I like him. I like the way he thinks. I could play for that guy. I mean, it's no wonder they're 10-0.
I was going to say, and Jared, you pointed on it. There's, I guess in our area, you don't sometimes think about Laingsburg, or at least, I mean, I obviously haven't lived there in quite a while now, but they're steady. They're always steady, just a solid program all the time. And you can see why. When you go from Coach Mitchell to him, I mean, it's like an easy handoff type of thing. I mean, he admitted it. He didn't hit the triple. He was born on third, like he said. But he, like you said, Ted, he had to keep it going.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's not taking any credit away from him. So that was a good chat.
Yeah, he really seemed like a good dude, and like you guys said, I mean, and I think like what he said, the number one job of his is basically connect with kids, and you can tell that he just seems like a very likable guy. And at the end of the day, I mean, high school basketball, did you have fun? That's the most important thing.
Yep.
And I kind of threw it out there, and I was looking ahead at their schedule. I mean, you know, we got a good look at Freeland's, 20-0 regular season last year. I think they'd have to go 22-0 to have a perfect regular season for Laingsburg. It's doable. Yep. I mean, looking ahead at their schedule, a lot of teams they've already beat already. Portland will be a tough test, but I mean, that's always a great accomplishment. We're all rooting for it, obviously.
Absolutely. But some of the other highlights in our area, our Corunna Cavaliers downed Clio this week, 70-29 behind Wyatt Bowers. He had almost a quadruple double. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that. That was once. I mean, that's one of those things you wish you kind of knew that you were doing when it was happening, because then maybe he could have gone for a couple more steals or a couple more assists. If he would have brought that home, I mean, he's on the nightly news that night.
Well, he did get the Argus Press headline, that's for sure. His twin Tarek led the team in scoring with 13, and Chesaning, that's another school that seems to have a good solid program year in and year out. They grabbed sole possession of first place in the MMAC with a big 71-35 win over Durand. Durand's had a couple tough losses, one to Laingsburg and now one to Chesaning. Evan List led the way with 22 for the 10-1 and 6-0 Indians. So we have a game coming up on the radio, Chesaning at Ovid Elsie, coming up right at the beginning of February. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Some good hoops. It's coming down to the wire. I mean, it's about to move to February. March is around the corner.
This area was a little bit weak in football. I feel like it's the opposite in basketball. I have a lot of teams having a pretty good season. I mean, Corunna, Laingsburg, Chesaning, Ovid Elsie is always solid. I mean, you got to be loving your schedule this year.
I am indeed. It's going to be a fun stretch winding down into February into March. It's going to be fun. Well, we're talking about basketball. We're going to talk college basketball and a few other things in our sports potpourri as we end the podcast. But first, a couple more important messages.
All right. So we already touched on it a little bit with Dan, when our chat with Dan Miller. Jim Harbaugh, official back with Michigan. I don't know about you guys. I think we mentioned it a week or two ago. I had a feeling he was always going to come back. It was just a matter of getting what he thought he deserved from Michigan. And I'd be curious. I mean, the president of the university had to come out and tweet that the deal was done. It seemed like the president had a huge part in it. It appears that the athletic director and Coach Harbaugh don't really see eye to eye, if we want to say it nicely. And, so I see some people saying like, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
I don't know how big of a deal that it is. As long as Harbaugh's on the sidelines, that's really all I care about. And if the president had to step in, who cares? Because they've got a lot of people coming back. I think I saw one of the Michigan beat writers said like 33 of their 44, so like they're 2 deep, are coming back.
Right.
That's a lot of talent coming back next year. Harbaugh obviously is the big part. So however the deal had to get done, I am fine with. I would have been fine if he stepped away, because, if he had desire to get back to the NFL, cool, go do it. But the expectations are going to be high for Michigan next year.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. The mission was accomplished, as they said in the tweet. He's back. He's on the sidelines. It makes me a little apprehensive, though, about this whole Ward Manuel deal. It's bizarre that, let's say, even this is what happened, which obviously is the president got it done. I don't know why they had the president come out with this statement. I feel like that's the athletic director's job. I feel like Ward Manuel should have done it. I don't like the idea that relationship is souring, especially when we know, Harbaugh at the drop of a hat could leave for the NFL. We need everything to be perfect to keep Harbaugh here, I feel like. And if I'm an athletic director, we've sung his praises a lot. Ward Manuel, obviously, he's done a great job. But I feel like his jobs number 1, 2, and 3 are keeping Harbaugh happy, in my opinion. If he keeps Harbaugh here for the rest of his career, he's done his job perfectly.
Yeah,
and so it just makes me a little apprehensive to hear that there's some friction there, because it seems like a position where, with all this NIL type stuff going, it seems like they need to be hand in hand, and it makes me a little bit worried that they're not.
I'm not apprehensive at all. I think Manuel's gone. I think Harbaugh has won this one. Let's think about it. Do you know who Alabama's athletic director is?
No.
You sure the hell know who their football coach is?
Right.
You know, Harbaugh won this one. It's pure and simple. I think Manuel's on his way out. This is just me without any information. I mean, when you have the president of the university making the call, like you guys are saying, and Manuel, there's been some other things that haven't gone so well for him in the program, not just the football program. So why wouldn't Harbaugh want his guy? Maybe Manuel was there for a while, but when he had to take the pay cut, Harbaugh sucked it up. But he didn't have.
There's no way he was happy about it.
What's that?
There's no way that Harbaugh.
No way was he happy about that. Absolutely, he's not going to forget that. So,
and I think we said it. We're probably repeating ourselves, or I am, that he deserves the pay increase. So if he feels like he was being disrespected, or whatever the deal was because of how much they were offering to pay him, Harbaugh has earned whatever he's asking for, with the back-to-back wins over Ohio State and playoff berths, Big Ten titles. After going through the Rich Rod and Hoke era, kind of like to Jared's point, I would think that they would be, Jim, what do you want? Whatever you want, cool. Whether it's more money for your assistants, more money for NIL, they have top-notch facilities. I was going to say better facilities. They've already got that. But, anything you want, because we don't want to make a bad hire and slip back into what we went through, with Rich Rod and Hoke. So and point being, Jared, you said it, mission accomplished. He's on the sidelines, at least for one more year. We're probably going to go through this again next December.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good problem though. That means you're successful. And one thing you're right about, Matt, you said the pressure's on. Man, they're loaded. I mean, they are loaded. They should run the table till they get to Ohio State, and we'll see what happens then. Again, at least it's a home game.
And what a sigh of relief it was that Stroud decided to declare. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I was thinking he was coming back. It really did seem, for how long he was waiting to make his decision. Obviously, it was a very tough decision, with all this NIL package money coming in for him. But that's another win for today, is that he's gone. And just to put a bow on the Manuel thing, if he did lowball Harbaugh, I think we're all in agreement. I think we'd be maybe at the front of the riot line with our pitchfork. Getting him out of there. I mean, it's not acceptable. We know what this program would be without him. We know what it was. So big announcement for me, though. I let you guys know about this last week. Maybe I'm veering a little bit off. This isn't quite a entertainment segment. We're kind of going all over the place, but it's at the front of my mind. Yellowstone. Yeah. I mean, this show is everything you guys said it was. It makes me want to quit my day job and move out to Montana and get a cowboy hat. I mean, I'm surprised at how much money has gone into this show. I thought it was just gonna be a rinky-dink little soap opera type show. I mean, the sweeping shots of Montana, the mountains, the cattle, everything about this show is incredible. I love the characters. I mean, they're, as I texted you guys, I mean, they're all kind of grade A badasses. John Dutton, especially, which is Kevin Costner. The show gets a lot of hub, but it's for good reason. And episode 1, it comes flying out of the gates, and I'm already through to season 2.
Whoa.
And I've only been watching it for a couple days. I mean, if you're one of those people like I was, who's waiting to watch this show, watch it. It's $5 a month on Peacock. Do it now.
I was going to say, I'm kind of jealous because you're getting to binge the whole thing, without ever seeing it. I almost wish I could go back and rewatch it and not know what was going to happen, because you'll see like the storylines kind of start to change over. I mean, I guess the storyline is the same, but they start to focus on different things as the seasons go on. And then now, obviously, I don't know if you're planning on getting through Yellowstone and then going to 1883 and then 1923, but
you should.
You should, because honestly, like if you, as it seems, you like Yellowstone, these are just as good. 1883 and then 1923. Ted, I don't know if you're caught up on 1923.
Not yet. I'm a couple episodes in.
Yeah, so they're at a standstill right now for a couple weeks. Okay. This isn't any spoiler or whatever for you, Jared, but the one thing from 1883 to 1923 that I wish they would have done is literally show how they landed on the land where the Yellowstone Ranch is. They kind of skipped over that part. Like 1883, they're getting there, and then 1923, it's already established.
They're there.
I would have been curious to see how they got that land, whether it was some big gunfight or, whatever. But like you said, Jared, the acting in each one of the series is fantastic. The cinematography, I mean, I want to move out to Montana and go skiing, or I don't know, do whatever. But the one thing, like I was wondering, like, so this is clearly hearing us talk about it. It's probably made a lot of people want to travel to Montana. Sure. And almost, like one of the things that they talk about a lot in the show is, all the New York and LA people stay out of Montana, go back, quit vacationing here. I wonder if it's actually driven up tourism in Montana because of the show. One more thing to wrap up my soliloquy on Yellowstone. One thing that I've thought about, and I told my wife this as we're watching it, that doesn't necessarily ruin it, but when you're watching 1883, when you're watching 1923, obviously with the newer, Yellowstone series, who's still alive, that they still have the ranch. So like when you're watching 1923, there's some drama, the Harrison Ford character, you don't know if he's going to die, or, there's some drama if they're going to lose the ranch. And, it's a little bit like, well, we know they don't, because the new series Yellowstone, they still have it. So, you don't want to like look ahead like that. But a couple times I've been like, man, what's going to happen? Oh, well, we kind of know what happened, but
You're our expert TV guy, Ted. Where does Kevin Costner's performance in this series, where's it rank? Is it up there with the Breaking Bads of the world? I'm drawing a blank on why am I drawing a blank on the lead from Breaking Bad?
Yeah, Bob Odenkirk. Or are you talking about Bryan Cranston?
Yeah, Bryan Cranston.
Odenkirk's Better Call Saul. They're all right there, but Costner's as good as anybody. I mean, it's hard to put him number one. Maybe he is. He's right there. I mean, his performance is just tremendous. And the other actors are really good too. It's a great show, and I'm glad you've had a chance to join us. And I by the way took your advice, watched Avatar, the original.
Still haven't seen the second one?
I haven't seen the second one yet. I'm waiting to go to the theater. I've just been a busy time right now. I did squeeze that one in on Disney Plus. It was everything you said. I mean, it's more than a sci-fi superhero type of thing.
Yeah.
The plot at the end, you know how it's going to end up. You still know how it's going to end up, but it was so well done. I mean, it was really, really good. The whole concept of it, James Cameron really knows how to put together a film. I mean, I can't even believe it was 2009 and I just watched it for the first time. That's pretty bad.
I was going to say 10 years. So 13 years old, and it still holds up. I mean,
holds up real well.
I know James Cameron talked about, I forget the exact, I'm not quoting verbatim, but like he had the technology or something to do the movie, or he had the story and what he wanted to do for the movie. He had to wait for technology to kind of catch up, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And it's funny because then you go and watch Avatar 2 and you're like, wow, Avatar, these graphics suck, compared to
really.
Avatar 2. I mean, no, they don't suck, but it's just a whole nother level. I mean, it's awesome. Well, I tell you what, since you watched it, I'll give you the title Tedtertainment Tonight. It's back.
It's back. Thank you. You
well,
got to keep me under control.
Avatar 2 is going to drop on Disney Plus, I think this week or next week or something. But are you still wanting to go to theaters to watch it, or
already? Oh, I don't know. I did make the comment to my wife, and I think you said you watched Avatar in 3D. Is that correct? Is that what you said last week?
I made the mistake. I thought I was walking into a 3D theater, and it wasn't. But what I've heard is that 3D is life changing. It's the best 3D movie you'll ever see.
So that's what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to hold out and go to the movies and see it in 3D. I wish I'd have seen the first one in 3D. It is very, very cool. Pandora, man. I'd love to live there.
Go to Animal Kingdom at Disney and you can experience Pandora.
Yeah, that's my next stop. Awesome. That's my next stop down there. I've seen most of the other parks. I haven't been there yet. Well, this isn't really a Tedtertainment segment, but we just wrapped up a couple things. But there's other sports to talk about. Today we're recording on Martin Luther King Day, Monday. Spartans lost a close game, but it was a heck of a game against Purdue.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. College basketball right now is so strange. There's no. I mean, like UConn is pretty good. Kansas is pretty good. There's a few other teams. Purdue is pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
But the Big Ten overall, I mean, maybe except for Purdue, like no teams in all of college basketball, I guess, have really like separated themselves. And Michigan State's going to be fine. I think that they'll make the tournament. They'll be all right. I don't know. We've kind of been back and forth on Michigan. I still think they're going to figure out a way to make the tournament. What they actually do, honestly, their tournament hopes might fall on how they do in the Big Ten tournament. You know, they might need to win a couple games in the Big Ten tournament to make the big tournament. So college, it's just weird. It's I don't know. I like it. You know, I'm going to watch and all that, but the vibe right now is just really weird on college basketball.
It's in a crisis, man. It really is. And it's sad to say that. I mean, we went through this, you know, whatever it was last week or the week before, where, you know, we used to set our watch those Michigan State games. It's not that way anymore. You know, the big thing is the emergence of the G League, you know, the international players. I mean, the two top players in this upcoming draft aren't even playing college hoops, you know, Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. So it's just there's no talent. There's no top Gonzaga-like team. It's, you know, State fans will you know, they'll cheer you on and they'll try to convince you that the college basketball hasn't changed, but it's just not what it was. You know, it's tough. It's tough when the face of your, you know, quote unquote league is Zach Edey. I mean, he's an electric player. I mean, he's fun to watch, and
he's good.
He's good, but it's just that's not exactly the star power you were hoping to garner in basketball this year.
Yeah, I think we're at the point where, you know, the regular season, it's just kind of blah, you know. I mean, there's nothing that just jumps out at you. I think we'll be geeked up, obviously, for the tournament, you know, we always do. It's the backstories and everything that goes along with it. But you know, the regular season, I'm not too fired up yet. It's still football season. And speaking of that, you know, we talked to Dan Miller a little bit about it, but our Detroit Lions, man, they could have, if they'd have got in the playoffs, I don't know, would they been matched up with San Francisco? Yeah, that would have been a tough matchup, but they could play in the playoffs this year. They're definitely a good enough team. I think I was seeing some rankings, you know, in the overall, they were like 7th, you know, in the NFL.
Yeah, they would have made some noise because we all know a lot of times with the NFL playoffs, it's the team that's hot going in, and that definitely would have been the Lions, kind of like the Jaguars. And I don't know if Ted, I think you were up for that, but
I was.
Jared, I don't know if you made it up when they went down 24-0 or whatever it was.
27-0 at one time.
Yeah, to be honest, my wife and I we turned on a movie. Yeah, and I was still like peeking at the score. Ooh. They scored a touchdown. Oh, it's a 14-point game. Oh God. Luckily, like right when the movie got done, it was like mid-4th quarter. So I was like, sweet, turning this game on. Yeah. I'm going to watch this finish. And what a comeback by Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. But the big note, and we're not taking a shot, especially coming from local legend Dan Miller doing play-by-play for the Lions. One of the best ever is Al Michaels. Mm-hmm. And he left a lot to be seen, or left a lot to be heard, I guess, with that call with the Jaguars, because, you know, again, he's one of the best to ever do it. He's getting up there in age a little bit. I don't know if that's contributing, but that whole game, I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what you have to say, Ted. You know, you've been doing it for a long time too. There just was no energy, and they had Tony Dungy in the booth with him, who again in the studio is great talking about football, but as the color guy on a game, there just was no energy. And specifically the game-winning field goal, that last drive, that like the last minute or two, it was like, you would think this is some like mid-October game between a 2-4 team and a 1-5 team or something like that. It was like, what is going on? This is one of the biggest comebacks in NFL playoff history. And you were acting like it was nothing. It was a really strange listen, especially with it being Al Michaels.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Matt. I mean, I don't know what the cause of it was. I can only speculate. Was it past his bedtime? He is 78, but, you know, I don't think Dungy helped him either. If he'd have been there with Herb Street, maybe it'd have been a little bit different since he worked with him all year long. But there was definitely something big time missing in that delivery. And I mean, how would you not get excited in that comeback? I mean, I don't care if you're 85 years old, you'd be pumped up, you know. There was something off. I don't know. And I don't know what it is. Yeah. I feel bad for Al Michaels. I just feel sad, you know, that maybe this is how he's going out. I don't know what his contract status is for next year, but that's a bad way to leave it.
It is. And, you know, people will complain about everything on Twitter. Yeah. That seemed to be, you know, I was telling you guys, like, I love Greg Olson.
Yeah.
You know, people are complaining about Greg Olson calling games. You can't make them happy. Tony Romo was the number one guy. And now everybody hates Tony Romo. It's like, these guys are all the best of the best, but I agree. I mean, it was a bizarre game, how they called it. I think Tony Dungy being in the booth with him, two older guys,
right?
It makes you appreciate Chris Collinsworth. That's for sure. I mean, the energy that he brings, the energy that a guy like Tony Romo brings to some of these games, it was weird. But going back to the initial game, I went to bed. I woke up, scrolling through Twitter, saw the score, and like what the F just happened? That was maybe the most preposterous thing I've ever read in my entire life, was waking up and seeing that score. But Ted, I do have one thing, with the Collinsworth note.
Yeah.
You obviously, the importance of having a good partner. Do you think that was something that, had a big factor in it? Was the fact that it was Dungy in there, maybe not a Collinsworth or somebody with a little bit younger blood?
Yeah, I do think that might have been a factor. Tony Dungy, like Matt said, he's good in the studio. He's legendary. He does a good job in the studio, but a little bit out of his element. And they needed a younger guy, or at least somebody with some energy that Al could play off of. And he is 78. He can't carry the whole damn broadcast himself.
Right.
And especially in TV, the color guys really very, very important. The play-by-play guy's got to have a little zip in his delivery too, but the color guy really is the guy that carries it. And you brought up Olsen. It's funny, I haven't saw a lot of negative stuff about him, but I was thinking about it the other day. I like him. I think he does a great job. And I was thinking while I'm watching it, he's paired up with the number one guy now at Fox. Isn't Brady supposed to just waltz in and take his job? I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know about taking Olsen's. He's got that contract waiting for him when he finally does hang him up.
Well, Olsen will still have a job, but isn't Brady supposed to come in at number one?
Yeah, it is. It's funny. I mean, it's funny to think about, where everybody's complaining about these announcers, if they'd have two kind of top guys like that on the under the same umbrella. But no, I think he's great. I think we don't have to worry about the Tom Brady thing for a while. I guess we'll find out tonight. Listeners will know by the time they hear this tomorrow, where Tom Brady stands. But no, I think he's just good, and it is kind of weird to always kind of think about that. How does he handle that? I don't know. It's a weird predicament for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
playoffs have been good though. The NFL playoffs, they always deliver.
Usually,
do. Maybe in that first round there might be one or two not very close games, but man, the NFL playoffs.
Yeah,
they're top notch. I mean, March Madness is always right there. We've said like the NHL playoffs. We're not huge hockey fans, but the NHL playoffs are always good. But NFL playoffs, the first two rounds are always so good.
This weekend, it really did deliver. It is. I feel like a lot of times this weekend's a big time dud. I was hoping just to get some good games. I mean, we had 3 or 4 really, really good games. I mean, we haven't even talked about the Ravens and Bengals game. Right. I mean, Ravens probably should have won that game. I mean, one of the crazier plays you've ever seen in NFL playoff history. Kind of swung it, but we really were. It's weekends like this, and we talk about all the time. NFL and football are king, and we could watch it every day of the week if it was on, man. So.
Yeah, it was a great weekend. It just cracks me up on the marketing in the NFL. Instead of just calling it Wild Card Weekend, they had to slip in the Super because of what they added an extra game.
I like it.
I don't know. It's just Wild Card Weekend. It usually delivers. It was good football for sure. Well, guys,
right
I don't
now,
know.
As we're recording it, 12-0, the Cowboys over the Bucks.
Damn.
Late in the second quarter, so it's going to be another Tom Brady epic comeback if he does it. So.
Possibly.
Hello, no one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
Fred, Mike, Jerry, Jack Strap here. How you guys doing? Hey, I just wanted to leave you this voicemail to congratulate you on your 250th 3-Point podcast. Well, the Strap family were happy and healthy. Well, at least a little bit healthy right now, living in northern Arkansas. Jake, he's out of jail, living with some chick he met at Taco Bell. He said he's leasing Dad with an option to buy. But after meeting her, I said, Jake, cancel the lease. But you know me, guys, I just can't keep my foot out of my big mouth. Hey, how about the Detroit Lions? You gotta love the job Wayne Fonts is doing there. Unlike Patricia, he knows the bill of his cap. should face forward, and his team is certainly doing so, rather than ass backwards. Hey, the quarterback's been a pleasant surprise too, with Joey Harrington proving McVay and all the other naysayers wrong. And how about Michigan's own Aiden Hutchinson? In my opinion, he's exceeded all expectations as the Lions' #1 draft pick. I can't believe also, guys, how productive the running core has been, led by Ricky Williams, who broke Barry Sanders' record. He's especially awesome in those short yardage goal line situations, and who doesn't love it when he does the pelvic thrust after scoring a touchdown? Hey, guys, I wanted to share some thoughts on the college national championship game, so thanks for asking. Michigan had a great year, but TCU did not help the Wolverines' psyche by getting absolutely humiliated and kicked to the curb, and boy did it smart. See what I did there? The excited and aroused Bulldogs mounted and humped the Horny Frogs all night, leaving them with big blue balls, which I know what that feels like. They should add blue, guys, to their uniforms, to the purple and black, because they're a program who has beat, well, black and blue. I know you missed my crystal ball predictions, so when rapid fire, get your #2 pencils out, Patricia, and get ready to write some good stuff here. Aaron Rodgers will be in the black and silver next year, increasing his odds for another Super Bowl in Oakland under Gruden. The 49ers sure do look pretty. With Purdy's moxie and accuracy, he will lead Frisco over the inspired Jim Kelly-led Bills to a Super Bowl victory 28-24 in Arizona next month. The Colts will hire Sean Payton, firing Saturday on Monday while not resigning old Matt Ryan, drafting young as in Bryce. And finally, Michigan's Juwan Howard will bitch slap another Big Ten coach before the season ends. And I hope if he does, it's the Buckeyes' Randy Ayers. So in closing, fellas, I miss you a lot. Jackie said hello, and Jake's getting a taco grande or whatever it is. But I have been entertained and sports educated by the three of you while listening to your ramblings. So again, happy 250 and keep up the good work. And remember, Jerry, never pass a state cop on the highway unless he's traveling under the posted limit. See ya.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Well, anyway, you know what, fellas? I think, should we just call this 250?
Sounds good.
Call it good. Watch some football, maybe catch up on Dan Campbell with the Manning cast. Looking forward to that. But it's just, again, fellas, it's been good to be with you for 250. I don't know if I'll make 250 more. I'm going to try to. We'll see what happens. But
no, I mean, one thing that we've said before, and this pod is the perfect example. If people go through our long list of 250 podcasts with guests, we've had some really cool guests on, and not just like national type stuff. You know, the Dan Millers. You know, we had Ryan McGee on early. We've had Coach Tony Anise on a bunch of times now. I think some of my favorite ones are the local coaches that we've had on, especially since we started doing this prep spotlight. But, you know, other times that we've had some local high school coaches on, those are some of the coolest chats that we have. And I think there's, you know, it might be a little bit of a niche thing. Maybe not everyone's into that kind of stuff, but we have some really cool conversations with some very good high school coaches across Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to narrow down to one of my favorite interviews, sorry to cut you off, Ted, but one of my favorites probably would be, you know, we talked to Ant Wright. That was a lot of fun. You know, big time Michigan guy, Chris Castellani. That was cool because it's like right after we talked to him, it seemed like right away he got, you know, hired by Barstool, and he's, you know, had this kind of career explode, you know, right in front of our eyes. So it's cool to be able to talk to him before that happened. But yeah, we've been lucky. I mean, Ryan Brady, Saginaw Valley State's head coach. I mean, a lot of good ones down the road. Like you said, a lot of these high school ones have been great as well.
Annie Agar? Is that how you say her name? Man, she's blown up on Twitter.
Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah.
Wow. So we've had fun with it. If you have out there, listeners, if you have any suggestions for future guests, definitely send them our way. You can hit us up at 3 Point Pod, and make sure you definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's just send some shout outs right now to our sponsors. They include Memorial Healthcare, home of the Now Community Wellness Center, and Skymint Cannabis. Skymint Cannabis, Michigan's leader in the industry, over 15 locations throughout the state. If you're over 21, go online at skymint.com, sign up for the rewards program. Skymint's your one-stop shop for pain relief, help sleeping, or just chilling out. New customers, go to that Corona store, use the coupon code 3.20, get 20% off Skymint products. Also, our good friends at Memorial Healthcare's Now Community Center. That place is just awesome, and it's much more than a gym. Included in your Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center membership is the open use of the cardio exercise area, the Sky Track, all the equipment, the therapy pool, stretching and swimming, sauna, steam rooms. Guys, I got to tell you, Jared, you'll be proud of me. I go there at least 6 times a week.
Wow.
How about
That's
that?
impressive. That's some commitment.
It's commitment. I'm there for an hour. I got my own little workout. I got 45 minutes of walking and 15 minutes of lifting and cranking my shoulders, and then finishing up in the steam room. I love that place. I really
steam room. I mean, we talked about it when you were showing us around. The steam room and a sauna are so clutch. I used to love sitting in the sauna. The Y that we go to now doesn't have a sauna. I wish it did, because that is a great way to flush everything out.
It sure is. I love it. Also, I love our other sponsors, which include AZEE Printing Solutions, Capital Sports Fieldhouse, Crow Real Estate and Auction, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. I want to send a special thanks out to Dan Miller of Fox 2 and the Lions Radio Network. Make sure you give him a follow at Dan Miller Fox 2, and also Daniel Morrill, the Laingsburg Wolfpack head coach. Great conversation with him as well. Don't forget our next high school game of the week on the radio, Z92.5. It's Friday, January 20th. It's St. John's at Fowlerville, so that should be a pretty good matchup. Just remember, everybody, peace and love. Be kind. Thanks for listening.